Hi, it's Kathy Baldwin, and you are in for a treat today. My guest today is Megan Dirks. Megan exemplifies what it means to really align your health, your story, and your success. You see, Megan's walked the path of PCOS, has struggled with weight, she's navigated grief and self discovery, and then she turned those lessons into a powerful business alignment and marketing success. Megan is the founder of the Girl on the Left project, which is a movement that challenges women to see themselves differently, to step out of the shadows, claim visibility, and create a life that truly feels fully aligned. In this conversation, we go deep into what alignment really looks like in both business and life, how to carry the hidden weight that so many of us women bear, and why the stories we tell ourselves are the key to our success. Megan also strongly talks about how finding our authentic self is the key to our success. So if you've ever felt out of line, struggled with your body while trying to build your business, or wondered how to step into the spotlight with confidence, this episode with Megan will light the way. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Unlearn the Crap TV with your host, Kathy Baldwin. Unlearn the Crap TV is more than just a show. It's a movement towards breaking free from the disempowering structures designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. It's about education, healing, and unlearning the detrimental beliefs that have been ingrained in society for generations. So now, please welcome the host of Unlearn the Crap TV, Kathy Baldwin.
Welcome to another episode of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up. Your soul is calling. I'm your host, Kathy Baldwin. And as you know, as a regular listener of this podcast, we discuss every aspect of life and how those aspects create conditioned responses and automatic programming, what I call crap, and how those conditioned responses can change and alter the quality of our lives. But thoughts are more than thoughts, because our conditioned responses, automatic programming, are energy, but energy is also turned into the physical biochemical of our body's responses, the electromagnetic connections between our brain, our heart, our gut, that affect not only the quality of our life and our relationships and our peace, passion, prosperity, and our purpose, but also our health and our wealth and our ability to live our best life. And so this show challenges those status quos. We bring experts on from every aspect of our lives so that we can take a look at what crap we're carrying so that we can step into our authentic, true, aligned selves and live the life that we were born to live. Today's guest is somebody I am so excited to introduce you to. Her name is Megan Dirks, and Megan and I have been in multiple circles together. And this is something that we've tried to coordinate for quite some time, because Megan is one of those women that you're going to want to get to know better. Thank you for joining us, Megan. Not only are you a fellow Canadian, but you're also a fellow author and entrepreneur. And I'm so excited to hear, what crap did you need to unlearn so that you could level up?
Yeah, Kathy, thank you so much for having me here today. So excited to talk about the crap because we all have it. And I love how much you just attack it and get right to it. So, would you like me to dig into my crap?
Yes, please. What crap did you unlearn?
Um, so much across the board, like most of us. The deeper we go into healing and learning more throughout life, I'd say the core of my crap has been challenging a lot of multi-generation passed down preconceptions on how wealth should be viewed and on how health should be viewed as well. So those were two big ones for me, and they're very interconnected for me too, for sure.
Absolutely. I cannot wait for you to explain what you mean by that. But before we get deep into this conversation, could you please tell our audience who you are and how you serve this world now that you've leveled up?
Yeah. So my name is Megan Dirks, for those of you who don't know me, which I assume to be many because I'm honestly not that cool yet. However, that is changing. And
You
I
are that
am,
cool. You just might not be known yet.
yes, precisely. Which is why I'm working with a PR firm, which is aptly named Known PR. So we'll roll with that. But that all being said, I'm a fellow Canadian, like Kathy mentioned as well. I grew up on the East Coast of Canada. My bread and butter is being a brand strategy coach. So that encompasses everything from my actual board certification in coaching to 15 plus years in web design and social media marketing and all of that stuff, which I discovered most entrepreneurs don't like to wear those hats for themselves. And I also discovered I love wearing those hats for other people. So it works out really well. I also found out early in my coaching journey I did not want to go the health route, and I really have enjoyed bringing it back around to the business route and applying the holistic and heart centered principles from that inner work and then marrying it with the outer work of making everybody look shiny and their messaging all nice and putting it out into the world in a professional, aligned way.
Thank you for using that word aligned,
Yeah.
because that's not something that we typically do when we're thinking business. We've been
Yeah.
fed a lot of crap that says we must follow a formula of other people. And while I do agree that success leaves clues, we're in a time and place where just rinse and repeat is not working. And it is coming back to our authenticity, our full, true alignment that
Mm.
is allowing people to really connect with us. I believe that that is because we can't hide anymore. When we're dealing with our businesses, we are front and center. We're not behind a smoke screen of marketing and all of that, especially the entrepreneurs, the solopreneurs, the coaches, the people who are building their own brands. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because the shift I've noticed over the last couple of decades, even since I started playing around making websites at 16, is that back then people didn't consider their personal values much. You probably inherited a lot of your core values, and a lot of us in the last 10 years even have been taking a lot of time to rewire what are my actual values. And
Yeah.
that's just for our personal lives. But then what I'm seeing a lot of now is it's rising and trending that over the past 2 to 5 years, even, business owners and solopreneurs are marrying their personal values into their business, which I think is fantastic. And some people go very strong on it, and some people go somewhere in the middle, and some people like to be very neutral. So for me, a core one for me is community. So when I recently made my book, it was with an anthology mindset because I frankly knew, Kathy, I was going to be too lazy to do it myself. So it was the push of having 21 other women that I was accountable for that made that project come to life in the first place. So community is a big value for me because frankly, I've noticed it's kind of the antidote to my own procrastination and things that I'd shelve if it was just me. Because how many times do so many of us put something off because it's just me? But if it was for a partner or another loved one or a colleague, we would pull overtime for it, right? So I'm seeing a lot of people bring personal values into their business in a way that gets that alignment that we were just talking about a few minutes ago.
I love that because there's two areas of what you just said that I want to play with. The
Yeah.
first one is you took personal knowledge of who you are, and instead of beating yourself up about it, you turned and looked at the polar opposite and said, how do I work with this? How do I make this a positive? And so instead of you saying, I'm not that good at just having it be about me, and a lot of people would then say, well, what do I have to give? Or, they would roll in a negative story. You said the polar opposite is if it's not just me, it's community. And so you created something by seeing both sides of yourself. That is absolutely a beautiful example of using the universal laws in business.
Thank you. I feel like there's a self-awareness there. I feel like I've practiced a lot of self-awareness over the years. So one thing that people don't love to look at that isn't as fun is our blind spots. And then um, if anybody's familiar with, there's a fantastic personality test, and there's a million of them out in the world, whether you know your Enneagram or your whatever. But one I love that's been the most impactful to me is from Positive Intelligence, and they run one called the Saboteur Test. And if you walk through that, it will tell you essentially what your own Achilles heels are or how you're most likely to screw yourself over, frankly, in the way of your success. So
Oh, I
it's
love that.
amazing.
Yes, because we sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah. And if you, or I would be fascinated to know what you get on something like that. And then anyone listening as well, if you go take this multiple choice test, you'll essentially run through and it will come back with the top 3 ways that you're likely to self sabotage. And just even knowing that, for me, everything was hyper critical, hyper vigilant, and hyper something else. It was very hyper, apparently. And really, that was a lot of overachieving. So, knowing that about myself, knowing I overextend, learning how to dial things back a little bit while still taking something to the finish line has been really, really good to know, honestly.
Wow, I love that insight. That is so cool because we think about that in personal, but we don't necessarily translate that into the business area. Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you when we finish this podcast, I'm going to take that quiz because I believe in self empowerment comes directly from self awareness. And so I'm
Mhm.
always looking for as many ways that I can really know and understand myself. So I'm going to encourage everyone else to, if you find it helpful, I'm definitely going to be checking that out as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to go back to something that we were touching on. And
Sure.
this is what occurred to me when you were talking. We're living in a time of, well, as we're recording this, there was a CEO who was caught on a Coldplay stage,
Yes.
one of those kissing cams, cheating. Totally destroyed his career. He was the CEO and lost it. We have situations like Diddy and the Me Too,
Yep.
where so many people. So people are putting one vision of themselves, usually something that is manufactured and created to be a sellable product, but their
Mhm.
true personality is being hidden in the closet. And I don't think that we're able to hold those two polar opposites anymore. That veil of who you truly are is
Mm,
coming to the surface. And that's what you were
yeah,
talking about earlier, about bringing your true values into your business, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah. Because if you don't, you end up essentially wearing a mask forever. And when you're especially just a solopreneur running your own team, starting to scale for yourself, um, that's really draining. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it doesn't feel authentic to show up and feel excited to do your work or start to build whatever you want to build with whoever you want to build it. If you're showing up as a very filtered version of yourself that is essentially inauthentic, and then you go start a collaboration with somebody because what you're displaying feels aligned, but what's actually inside is not very, and then maybe those conversations fall flat, or they feel frustrating, or they develop collaborations that weren't really aligned in the first place because you weren't coming to it actually as you. I see that happen a lot. And
Absolutely.
for clarity's sake, even you and I had talked for a good 2 hours before we even hopped on this, right? So we know each other a little better than just coming into it as nothing. And we both don't necessarily love having guests on either of our shows when things feel very disconnected or kind of off kilter, right? Like it's harder to have the conversation.
Absolutely. And what I find when we're talking about this is if someone's trying to hide something, I can feel it, they can feel it, but everyone in the audience can feel it. How
Yeah.
does that translate into marketing and a website?
It destroys any genuine, I talk about this a lot where people can create content all day. You can have a totally filled out content calendar, but if that content isn't actually authentic, people feel that. So, what you lose is the really important piece where you're not magnetic to anybody. People aren't being drawn to you because something in that energy does feel off. So you're there and you're maybe giving the quick tips and the little win and the posting your daily motivational quote or whatever, but there's no genuine depth there for who is Megan if I work with her? Who is Kathy if I work with her? And I want to see that at least 7 to 10 times as a touch point over and over and over so that when I do actually reach out to collaborate with Kathy or Megan or whoever, that I feel like I know them already to some degree. And not like best friends kind of thing, but enough to feel really good going into it. So for me, even in rooms, and I did this in our networking room that we met in as well, is I come in, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste anybody else's time. Hi, I'm Megan. I say fuck. I do things a little differently sometimes. I'm not religious. I'm from Canada. If any of those are red flags to anybody, maybe I'm not your girl. But on the same token, I have a huge heart and I'm very inclusive and I don't like anything that divides. So it's just what I've learned is anything we do, the more honest we do it, we're filtering out and deterring people that are unaligned, and we're attracting people that are so aligned. So that's been my personal experience.
Yeah, I love the way you phrase that because so many times people think that we're supposed to be everybody's cup of tea. And
Yeah.
when we are trying to please everybody, people pleasing was one of my Achilles heels that took me down and took me out. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing that into business, when you're trying to be vanilla so that you appease everybody, you're not
Yeah.
attracting anybody.
Exactly. And that's what I see a lot of people fall into where they get afraid of niching down, or they get afraid of committing to one social platform, or they get afraid of putting out one very specific offer whatever it is in their business, they're more afraid of the people they might miss out on, which probably aren't even high quality leads for them in the first place. And in the process, they accidentally filter out people that they would absolutely attract. So it does have a lot of effects behind the scenes for sure.
Wow, that is such a really amazing perspective because, well, we're in a time where everything is changing.
Yes.
And this epiphany that you are bringing, this mic drop moment, that you are actually losing out on your ideal client by trying to please everybody instead
Mm-hmm.
of showing up raw, authentic, fully empowered in who you are, what your gifts are, and how you can serve, and only being able to serve those people that you are aligned with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And that's what everybody wants, right? We all want the dream clients. We want the people that, like, oh my God, we hope they sign up instantaneously. Or if even I'm going to work with someone that I'm really excited about, I'm like, oh my God, I hope Kathy picks me for her podcast because that would be so amazing. It's not just if I get that spot, cool kind of thing, right? Like I'm excited about it too on this end, and that's really important as well. So it's something I've seen a lot of, and it's also something I've been guilty of. I have dumbed down my business identity in the past, and that's something I'm currently working on transitioning out of. Because honestly, my first practice for all things branding and business, I played it really safe, and I called it Brand Boss Coaching. And it was very clear that it was branding for solopreneurs, and I was a coach too. So there wasn't much to misinterpret. The clarity was there. What wasn't there was really who I wanted to work with. And I realized over time I was getting clients that honestly did not light me up to do the work. And some of them were a little boring. And I realized I was doing the vanilla thing and wanting to appeal to corporate and wanting to appeal to solopreneurs on both ends. So, long story short, and not even this is not a plug for myself, this is just a fantastic example, honestly, recently where I've pivoted from that and I've done so much of my inner work. And I encourage people to do this, to do the inner work, see what comes up, and apply that to your business. And if that requires a whole rebrand, then so be it. But it's very likely your values have changed. You may have let go of someone you've grown up with. Your goals may have changed. And for me, I now have essentially started relaunching myself as Brandosaurus Meg because that is so much funner to me. And I rediscovered my adult love of dinosaurs from childhood. And I said, why not put that in my business? And if people find that silly, those aren't the clients I want to work with. If people find that immature, those aren't the clients I want to work with. If it takes me out of corporate tiers, I don't mind because I know the only corporates coming to me are people that would still see the value regardless of the branding dressed up around it, right? So it has been a really fun experiment and journey to fully integrate everything I love, where I do curse and I do love dinosaurs. And you'll see that in my marketing, and all of these fun things come together for a way more authentic, aligned version of me to bring to the world. And I hope everybody does that. I really do.
Well, I hope so too, because there's something that you said that I don't know if the audience picked up, but I sure did. And that was that when you're working with your ideal clients, not only are they aligned with you, but you're giving your absolute best to them because you're lit up, you're
Mm-hmm.
excited, you're in
Yes.
alignment. And so what you are producing for your clients is of a higher quality because of that alignment.
Yeah. And there's also something really important that I've noticed, and they're called category cues essentially, where it's this concept that if you are working within a specific industry or lens, or even for product-based businesses, you end up running into what we call the sea of same, where everybody is kind of trying to fit in their industry and nobody stands out anymore. Because when I mentioned that about my clients, what I've started to notice is that 5 yoga instructors in, we're building the same website with the same colors, with the same like fancy feminine script fonts, because everybody wants to look like the wellness brand. And the wellness brand is typically really clean, minimal, feminine, white, with maybe like a green smoothie kind of look to it. And by the time 4 or 5 of those get made, then I'm just putting you all out to compete against each other and you look identical. Nobody stands out. So what I really want is the clients to start to embrace in themselves, like, look at your competitors. And if they all look similar, go run and do the opposite and make it fun.
Yes, yes. In my previous life, I used to be an interior designer. And
Yeah.
the clients that I had the toughest time with were the ones who loved bling,
Yeah.
because they were so attracted to the shiny, blingy stuff that they wanted everything to bling. And so when I would show them something that was non blingy, they'd say, no, it's not bling. And I had to bring them to a place to say, if everything is bling, then nothing is standing out.
Yeah.
It's like the Christmas tree farm. It's like the snowstorm. There's no contrast. There's nothing that gives that polar opposite that makes you shine. For something to bling and shine and show up as magic in the world, it has to have the rough, the dull, the boring, the quiet, so that it stands out.
Absolutely. And that reminds me as well, and this is a fantastic case study anybody can go look up, regardless of what industry you're in. I highly encourage it. It is this brand called Liquid Death. And they sell, just off gut reaction, I'd be curious, what do you think that product might be? Liquid Death.
Did you say death or depth?
Yes, death.
So DEATH.
Yeah,
I think alcohol.
it is water. And they did that on purpose, and it's brilliant, because if you go look the next time you're at a gas station, grocery store, whatever, you go look at the water bottle section, it's a bunch of flimsy plastic, translucent, maybe tinted blue, maybe tinted kind of green bottles that have a lot of blues and greens on them for health purposes, and they all look identical if you line them up together. So these guys were absolutely genius, and they said, what if we made ours look like a beer, pretty much? So if you look at the labels, they sell it in cans instead of plastic bottles, for starters. So that already differentiates it. And then they package it in a box the same way if you went to pick up a case for the weekend to drink with your friends. So that's your water. Packaging, totally different, flips it on its head. Because usually you're carrying those big, awkward, kind of squishy, long 18 packs or 24 packs or something. So again, just taking what people expect and flipping it on its head. And then they just run with that to the extreme. And it's worked wonders for them. It's brilliant. And it's exactly what I wish every solopreneur was doing for themselves.
So what are you seeing when solopreneurs are coming? Because what that example is so out of the box, so cool. Because I'm thinking, as someone who has gone sober for the last month, that I don't want to stand out as being outside of the box, but I still want to be noticed. So that branding, the fact that they're differentiating themselves, actually helps someone feel included in a different place. So you've got these real opposites happening here. How do you get your clients to see something so unique that it would allow
Yeah, it's really fun because
them to shine.
I think it's the funnest part of the process, honestly, is getting someone and sitting down with them. I love to do a good competitor analysis and sit down with someone one-on-one and be like, here's your current niche. Here's what 5 other people are doing in it. Here's what they look like. Here's what their offers are priced at. Here's how they dress themselves up for it. And we comb through their website, their socials. What do their headshots even look like stylistically? And we say, okay, what are we comfortable with that feels you, that isn't that? And then let's go build that. So if everybody in your niche has a pink colored shampoo bottle, if your favorite color is yellow, I want yours to be yellow. Like they're not, because inherently the thing inside the bottle, whether it's shampoo or water or whatever, the product is the same. Either way, it's really, we're just shifting how we dress it up and present it to the world. So can we present it in the way that's the funnest for you, that makes you want to show up to work, that sticks out in the sea of doom scrolling when people have such low attention spans? That's what I'm really trying to get at with people.
And you're right. If it wakes you up and makes you excited, your audience, your clients are going to feel that.
Yeah. And it feels fun. You become the one that's fun to pick too. You're like, ooh, what's she doing over there? So you get some curiosity from people too, some mystery. And those are all good components that I feel are undervalued in marketing in 2025 because everybody is so laser focused on just churning out content, regardless of alignment or quality, let's say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to shift topics because we know that there is the business side and the personal side, and we've touched on that through this conversation. And you brilliantly explained the business side and what alignment looks like, but you just touched on the fact that you co-authored or founded an anthology project. Could you tell us about that anthology? Because this is a really cool story.
Thank you. I love taking an opportunity to share that, so I appreciate you extending that. The Girl on the Left was the title of the book that I created along with 21 other amazing women. And it was essentially the result of 7 to 8 years of my own inner work. And I had gone through one hell of a health journey myself that was almost a decade, involved 120-pound weight loss, hormonal imbalances, misdiagnosis with doctors, and pretty much 6 years worth of major surgeries. So by the time I was done all that, I looked back on my old self and I realized I don't love her. I carried shame around her. She was ugly to me. She was lazy to me. And when you're in especially very wellness or self-development focused spaces like I was, we're always pushing for better, better, better. And honestly, that trips into very toxic territory pretty soon. So when you're always trying to reach the next level, you're not really pausing and reflecting and looking back to honor how far you've come. So for me, I'm surrounded at this point by all these beautiful before and after stories from all these women, and I can't post mine because it would involve me posting my before. And the body image issues I had around that, the self-hatred I had around that, it was just not happening. I watched everybody else do it that went through their journeys with me, and I was like, good job, I can't. So 2 or 3 more years of my inner work later, I realized, you know what? Maybe I can start to love her, and maybe she really did get me here. And I can't be the only woman that feels like this when I look back on past chapters of my life. We've all had messy ones at some point. So I said, what if we took the classic before and after format where we laser focus on the after and how amazing we are now and how far we've come and how shiny we look now, And what if we kind of put that focus on the before instead? So that is essentially what The Girl on the Left is all about, is challenging women to look back at not the best chapter, but debatably the worst chapter, and having radical love for that version of herself. So me, 21 other amazingly brave women came forward and did that, just on a variety of different topics, from divorce, infidelity, financial ruin, PTSD, various health challenges, you name it. We really wanted to cover the board and put out a story that told women, you're not alone in any of these things. And if you feel like you are, guarantee you're not. There's at least one other woman, but probably thousands that have gone through, hundreds of thousands that have gone through all of those things before you. So it is also a bit of a project to combat the self-hatred and isolation and loneliness that women tend to put themselves through too.
I'm tongue-tied at this moment because there's so many things that I want to say. Social media is built on the after. They'll only show the good parts. But we're also in a time and place where there's a lot of trauma healing that's going on, and people are either trauma vomiting, or they are living in this shiny, beautiful, everything is perfect place. But what you just talked about is honoring the before, honoring the messy, not living in that trauma and using that trauma as a way to connect, poor me, look at me, look who I was. But it's about really holding a beautiful space for who you were in order to become who you are.
Yeah.
So Megan, tell me, what do you honor about your girl on the left?
Ooh, that's a good one, because it took me a really long time. And honestly, I didn't finally post her publicly until the book came out with all the other women too. So for me, I had to admit at some point, even on a very logical, analytical level, if that was the only way I could get there in my brain at first, was that was the girl that started waking up earlier. That was the girl that decided to take a hard look at her health and book the appointment. That was the girl that went to the gym when she didn't want to go to the gym. And that was the girl that sometimes chose to self-isolate strategically to protect herself from friends, family, acquaintances, connections that weren't supportive of her healing journey. And that was the girl that put in the work at the end of the day. Otherwise, the version of us that we post, that is the highlight reel, doesn't get to exist.
Yeah. What did it take for you to show up and do that hard work and honor yourself when you talked about the fact that even in the after, you did not like or respect the before? What did you have to bring out of yourself to bring yourself to that place of self-worth to start the journey?
So for a little more context as well, anybody listening that is not familiar with PCOS, it is polycystic ovarian syndrome for women. And I went misdiagnosed with it from my mid-teens to essentially my mid-20s. And during that process was very frustrating for me. And there was a lot of anger and fear because I was rapidly gaining weight. I didn't know why. I didn't understand hormonal imbalances or progesterone or testosterone or estrogen or how they commingled or anything. What I knew and experienced was that I essentially gained 100 pounds while I was eating in deprivation and while I was going to the gym with a trainer 5 days a week for 2 hours a day, as a 17-year-old. And that wasn't working still. So when that wasn't working still, and you feel like you're doing everything right, I did end up in a very dark place where I did make the conscious decision that if at some point I stepped on the scale and it got to 250 pounds, I had created a metric in my head where there would be no coming back from that, and I might do something to myself. So for anybody that has been in those places, they're not fun. And essentially, after being guinea pigged on and off of different drugs as well to try to help get it under control, they weren't working either. And one day I did step on the scale and it read 249. And I realized, oh shit, that's my wake up call. That is one number off from something I don't really want to do, is what I realized. So that was kind of the kickoff point. Essentially fired my current doctors. Okay, we're not going to do something silly to ourselves. So what are we going to do instead? And go find better doctors, go find better support systems, meet women who have gone through this and are on the other side, those kind of things, and use that as fuel until we can get out of whatever this is.
Wow. So that line in the sand became what saved you, not what took you down.
Ironically, the arbitrary number I created in my head that was unacceptable for me to hit also was my catalyst number too.
What a powerful, powerful statement that is.
Yeah.
You, in your story, everything you've shown is where the place that could give you a good story, you gave it instead of a story, you gave it as the fuel.
Yeah. And for me, even looking back on it now, I'm like, yes, powerful. I appreciate that. At the time, honestly, and people have asked me this, like, what got you past this? How did you get through this? And the very honest answer is way less empowering, but the very honest answer is fear. I was terrified. I didn't want to not live. I wanted to keep going. I was afraid it would rule my life forever. I was afraid of what I might do to myself. I was afraid of the state of my mental health at that point and my relationship with food and my body, and then that extending into relationships and sex and enjoying any of that world as well. So really it was a fear dominant decision, but it was my favorite fear ever because it put me on the path for all of the very, very big change that I was, of course, obviously afraid to execute as well. But that's the hard work that we all want to do. So that is a different bucket for sure.
What is your favorite story in the anthology Girl on the Left?
Ooh, I struggle so hard to pick favorites, but I can. There is one, well, there's so many powerful women in there, obviously, but one of my absolute favorites, partially because we're totally different personality types as well. So collaborating on the book was definitely more of a challenge for us because we communicate in two different languages entirely. But if you go read specifically Dr. Florian Wu's chapter, she is a coach that I trained with, and she was put through the ringer. And anything I say here, I'm comfortable sharing because she chose to put public. But essentially, her story in a nutshell was she was a woman in the military in the Desert Storm War. And that was back in the 90s. They didn't have terms coined for things like PTSD or trauma. You weren't actively getting help with that. It wasn't being talked about. And she essentially had risen up through the ranks quickly into a position of power. And before she was deployed, by just a couple days, her father had passed away. And they deployed her anyway. And she was only 20 something, like 20 or 21, young girl at the time. So she handled that grief, and then her leadership role and her military role and trauma of being a medic on the front lines, all in one ball. And when she came back home, she was very obviously a different person. And it took her many, many years of work to even realize or find the right doctor to say, hey, you might have PTSD. And that might explain and help you with a lot of things instead of just thinking you're crazy or whatever people are calling you, right? So her story is definitely, she was one of the people I knew before I found Women for the book. And I knew she had one hell of a story in there. And I did do personal outreach to her and say, hey, here's what I'm about to build. I think you deserve a chapter spot in here. Can we talk? And luckily we did. We hopped on a video call. We had it worked out within 20 minutes. She was so on board. And we brought it to life. She is in the book.
Both your story and her story originate by both of you taking control of your life and your health because the medical system was not there to guide you. You had to take control.
Yeah. And that's something you'll notice if in any situation I'm talking about health, I'm highly encouraging people to self-advocate for their health. Because a lot of people don't. A lot of people are intimidated. A lot of people don't do the work themselves to know the questions they should ask for themselves. And a lot of people, if they get dismissed or brushed off from a practitioner of any type for any condition, sometimes just take it and go home sad and, oh, okay. Instead of being like, no, that doesn't fit right with me. That's not lining up with what's going on in my body. This has been going on a long time. Whatever your problem is, like, don't be afraid to go get 2, 3, 4, 5 opinions until you find someone that will listen to you, because there are so many stories I have seen and experienced personally where if you don't fight for yourself, nobody else will. And that is the scary, empowering secret that I love. Same sides of the coin, but no one is coming to save you but you. So whenever you want to start, whenever you're ready, there are very few people in the world that will have your best interests at heart. And most of them are not random strangers that you meet once. You might need to push.
Well, I think you not might need to. I think you do need to. My story is exactly the same, where I was having stress and pain and not sleeping. And the only thing that got me to the doctor was the not sleeping. And so it started a whole series of sleeping pills. Nobody went to the root cause. And then eventually figured out, oh, we have fibromyalgia. So now there was more pills for that. But every one of those layers were symptoms. We didn't get to the root cause. Is that what happened in your own medical situation?
Absolutely, because I essentially, as a young girl, didn't get a period. And then everybody calls you a late bloomer for a bit. But then I was dipping into territory where I'm like, okay, now it's ridiculous even if we're calling me a late bloomer. Like, I'm almost in my early 20s at this point. And there was just nothing. So when I had, unfortunately at the time, male doctors that weren't as educated on female conditions, that is fine. I'm also coming from a family who has a bit of a history of aversion to going to the doctor in the first place. So unless it's critical, you don't necessarily go in. And for me, it was, going in, and obviously weight gain is a very common primary symptom for PCOS. And when you go in and you talk to someone about that, of course, they just want to assess your eating. And that was fine. And I'm like, okay, here's my food diary. It's fuck. So now what? And then they didn't know what to do with me. And they're like, well, maybe work out too. And I'm like, here's my gym membership and my trainer. Now what? And I knew there was something else there. And they were just being a little lazy on digging actually deep with me. And when we finally ran blood work and I finally learned what I should be looking for in my own numbers on my labs, that's really when things started to change for sure. And it was unfortunately 5 or 10 years too late. We guinea pigged me on and off a ton of drugs that are not even necessarily frontline prescriptions for PCOS in the first place. A lot of them are metformin, which is a diabetic or pre-diabetic drug. And while it can help with some insulin resistance, it's not a cure-all for everybody by any means. And in a lot of cases, it causes more side effects than good because it's an off-label technically for PCOS. Another fun one was spironolactone, which helped with male pattern hair growth, which I'm sure we all love the sound of as ladies, where I will tell you in a nutshell, unattended for 3 or 4 days, I could grow a mean beard, Kathy. And that was not the funnest for my love life at the time either as a young woman, and insecurities already and self-worth issues already. That's a very hormonally confusing time as it is. So then that was only effective for me at the maximum dosage of 200 milligrams, and essentially also something that you're not allowed to take if you're trying to conceive. So then it felt like choose. Do you want to try for a family and not have your symptoms alleviated? Or would you like to have your symptoms under control, but never be able to be trying to conceive and have a family? So that wasn't a long-term solution either. And that's what a lot of this process was, and why it was so mentally defeating was because I knew even those things they were trying to help with, but still not core root cause things. So thankfully, in present day, we have way more education around that. I don't take a single prescription drug to manage my PCOS. I have been able to maintain my weight loss. There are a mix of holistic and like supplemental things specifically that there are clinical studies around now that I've integrated where I can essentially get by really good. And it's just wild looking back on the chaos that I went through with it all and what I was pumping into my system that was doing nothing but harm anyway.
Yeah. How would you connect that personal journey to how you run your business now? Because you are an interconnected, interrelated person. And that journey of what you went through personally with your health, with your identity, with all the self-love, the healing, everything. And now you have turned it into identifying who you are and who you serve, and helping people identify who they are and who they serve so that they can bring their genius. How do you see that connected?
Yeah, there's two through lines that kind of jump out to me, especially when we're taking the health and business parts together. And one of them is just not being afraid to be outside of the box. People will think you're crazy, and that's okay. That's on them. That's their own fears and insecurities. You do you. And then the other really big component, and I market this a lot now as I'm pivoting into this dinosaur specific branding for my new practice, where I'm really pushing the concept of evolving being normal and being something that we integrate across the board and level up as we do business and health. So the version of you that runs your business today or your podcast today is probably already quite evolved from if you look a year back, 2 years back. So encouraging people to stay in that process and not get stagnant, and let yourself change and let your brand change and let everything change. It's okay. It's growth and it's healthy, and it's good to apply it across the board.
Absolutely. Well, I could not think of a better way to end this conversation in that exact note. Allow yourself to evolve, allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to discover who you are. Don't cling on to the old versions of yourself that you've outgrown, and your clients will evolve with you. Your business, your health, all of that will align with you.
Yeah, the parts that
Megan?
are meant to stay will stay. And the people
Yeah.
that are meant to stay will stay. And
Yeah.
it will scare some people and it will challenge them. And just keep doing you.
Yeah. Megan, for those people who have heard you and they're tired of trying to fit into someone else's box and they're ready to fully level up into their own entrepreneurial or solopreneur business, and they say, help me, how do you serve them and how can they find you? So, Megan, for those people who have heard you and are inspired by you, and they are ready to level up into the best versions of themselves, and they're ready to take their entrepreneur journey and their solopreneur journey and really hone into where they are, who do you serve and how do you serve them and how can they find you?
I serve, Kathy, pretty much all solopreneurs from all industries, dominantly coaches, but I am friendly to anyone who wants to build something bold and fun and them. So you can come find me over at Brandosaurus Meg. It's pretty hard to miss me. I'm the dinosaur branding girl. And that is the same across my website and all social channels as well.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to encourage everyone who is ready to level up and bring their dinosaur or their yellow or their crap, like I have, and bring it to the world and find their own authentic alignment to reach out to you and find, because I believe more than anything else that we're in a pivotal time where the world is calling each and every one of us to level up, to be the best versions of ourselves, that bring that gift that only we can bring to this world. And you can help get their message out.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Kathy. I loved our chat.
I've loved it even more. Well, I thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your expertise and your stories with our audience. And
Of
for
course.
those of you who are listening and watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, reach out to Megan. But when you add your energy and support this, not only are you putting forth an energetic blueprint and step in the right direction for you and your life, but you are helping others find this same message that you found helpful. So I'm asking you to help us get this message out into the world by like, subscribing, and sharing. And until then, don't forget to challenge everything so that you can achieve anything. I'm Kathy Baldwin, the host of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up. Until next time, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Unlearn the Crap and Level Up podcast. If this conversation spoke to you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and leave a review. That simple act helps amplify this important work of unlearning the crap that holds us back. This show is built on the foundation of my 3 books: Unlearn the Crap and Level Up, Your Soul is Calling, a roadmap to release what no longer serves you. How I Unlearned My Crap, which is my raw story of breaking free and the patterns that I needed to unlearn. And the 3rd book, The Unlearned Life, an AI-powered ritual system for truth transformation and personal empower. If you're a podcaster or you want to be, this is for you, because 85% of podcasts fail, not because of the message isn't powerful enough, but because the back end can be overwhelming. I created the Finally Podcast automation system so your voice doesn't become a statistic. Your message is too important to be silenced by burnout, tech chaos, or even wasted time. My mission is to support not only my guests and you, the audience, but also every podcaster who's ready to level up. So until next time, keep unlearning, keep leveling up,